full council meeting. So can I welcome everyone back to normal, hopefully back to normal, at this annual council meeting. Before we start business, my chaplain will say a prayer. So can I welcome everyone?
Let us pause in heart and mind, in this moment, in this place. For an old year is passing, and a new year lies open before us. Blessed are those who have stayed indoors and worn masks and washed their hands, for they have protected countless others. Blessed are the decision makers and the innovators, for they have given us rhythms and certainties in uncertain times. Blessed are those who have been neighbours, for they have created and sustained community. Blessed are the hospital workers, the ambulance crews, the doctors, the nurses, the carers, the cleaners, for they have borne the burden. Blessed are the delivery drivers and the postal workers, the checkout staff, the refuse collectors, for they have seen the best of us and the worst of us. Blessed are the teachers and those who have taught in their homes, for our children and young people's sake. Blessed are those whose comforting presence has sustained the wearied in body and soul. Blessed are those who have struggled. Blessed are those who have thrived. Blessed are those who have clapped, who have voted, who have given, and those who have served. Blessed is this gathering now, and for the year to come. May each of you know blessing, and together be a blessing to the people of this faithful city. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Please sit down. Right, I am only here in this seat for a very short period of time because my first item on the agenda is to ask for nominations for the mayor for the municipal year 2021 to 22. So I'll be leaving this chair in just a moment when someone's been elected. So could I have nominations for the position of mayor, please? Yes, Councillor Hassan.
Hi, I'm going to propose Councillor Stephen Hudson. Stephen has not only lived in Worcester since 1990, but has had the honour to represent his ward on the council since 2004. He's had the privilege to chair the Performance Management and Budget Scrutiny Committee for 10 years, was Mayor's Consort to wife Councillor Lucy Hudson, and has actively been a member of Communities Committee and Audit and Governance. He's an active member of the community who not only lives in his ward, but also represents the community on ward and council. Stephen has been a mentor to me, and his passion to represent the community is inspirational. It has been an honour to work alongside him, and today to propose my colleague, Stephen Hudson, Mayor of Worcester.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Hassan. Yes. Do we have a seconder for that? And could I ask you please to remain seated when you're speaking?
Thank you. It is with great pleasure that I second my husband Stephen to be the Mayor of Worcester. It is a real special year, being the 400th anniversary of the mayoralty of Worcester and the 300th anniversary of the present Guildhall. Stephen moved down from the northeast to the Midlands in 1998 and moved to Worcester in 1990, where he has lived ever since. Stephen was the first baby boy born in Leeds on Christmas Day 1964. He was presented with a gift from the mayor, and his picture was in the Yorkshire Post. Stephen's father was a vicar, and at the time of the miners' strike, he was the vicar of Easington Colliery, and he was at the heart of the local community supporting the striking miners. At his funeral, the local Miners' Union bought their banners and which were displayed in the church. Stephen's parents split up when he was 10. He attended school in Peterlee and went to Northumbria University to study logistics. At this time, his mother had moved to the Scottish borders, and Stephen got involved with the local Conservatives and in the regional Young Conservatives. And he managed to speak at a Conservative Party conference when he was 19. Tragedy hit Stephen's family in 2002 with his niece Nicola, which was killed in a car crash with a bus in the October, and his mother died in November of the same year. It was work who brought Stephen to Worcestershire. He started working for Christian Salverson in his Droitwich, in their Droitwich offices in 1987, and moved to Worcester, living in St John's in 1990. Over the years, he has worked for a number of companies managing logistics. And 2 years ago, he started it with Muller at their Droitwich offices and is one of their managers planning milk deliveries to large supermarkets and small corner stores. And over the past year, he has worked mainly from home, and he couldn't be busier. We first met on election day 1992, when Stephen was manning the association offices. Stephen stood in St John's between 1992 and 1999, and we actually did quite a lot of our courting here, delivering leaflets and canvassing. We got married in 1997, and our guests included Peter Luff and Don Corrie. There was a picture of our wedding in the Worcester News, and they got the quote rather wrong. They had me as a Welsh national netball player, and Stephen was a volleyball star. Away from politics, sport is very important to him. In our first 2 years of married life, he was a Sunderland season ticket holder and didn't miss one home game. He's also a lifelong member of Durham County Cricket Club and started following them long before they gained first-class status. More locally, he has also been a season ticket holder with the Warriors for many a year, and we've followed them across Europe, and including he went to watch them in Russia. Stephen's also a Rotarian. We joined the Worcester Vigonia Rotary Club in 2009, and over the years he has helped coordinate the Worcester Rotary Christmas parcels, and it has been recognised that he was awarded the Paul Harris Fellowship Award. He will actually take over from the president of the club when he's finished his Mayoral year. Stephen is a regular at St Nicholas Church in Warnton Villages, which has been continued to meet with Zoom or in the open. And he often takes our long-haired miniature dachshund Monty with him. Over the recent months, Stephen has taken up home brewing and has started to get more adventurous and has amassed quite a number of interesting brews. I'm sure we will hear a lot of it. Stephen, of course, was my mayoress in 2008-9, or consort, and during this time, he was able to understand what is expected in this role. Stephen really does have Doak for every event, but does take his life seriously. He took his time to be agreed to put his name forward for this role. He feels that working locally, he will be able to fit in with his role and carry out only as Stephen can. I'm sure everybody has heard about my recent illness and a stroke. Stephen has been my rock and nursed me back to health. It's my pleasure to second him to be Mayor of Worcester.
Thank you, Councillor Lucy Hodgson. So we have a nomination and a seconder for Councillor Stephen Hodgson. Do we have any other nominations for the post of Mayor? I see no other indication. So I'll hand over to Claire now for the voting arrangements.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Could I ask you to raise your arm, please, for all those voting in favour? Thank you. The motion is carried.
So I declare two.
Stephen, if you'd like to come forward.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for electing me as mayor of this great city. It's one of the greatest privileges that can bestow a citizen of Worcester. I'm going to first of all announce that my mayoress will be my wife, Councillor Lucy Hodgson. I do believe this is also historic as well, because I think it's probably the first time a past mayor has actually become a mayoress as well, and vice versa in my case. So Lucy, can you come forward to the table, please, and accept the mayoress's chain? I will now call upon Councillor Gregson to give thanks to the retiring mayor.
Thank you, Mayor, and may I be the first to congratulate you on your appointment this year. I would like to briefly thank Councillor Jo Hodges for her work in what has been a quite extraordinary year. Councillor Hodges, of course, has been a mayor earlier on in her political career, and so has been able to draw on those strengths and those abilities and those knowledge that she had before. But I don't think anybody really imagined when we started out this time 12 months ago that Jo would spend so much of that time cooped up and away from the public. Of course, we've been able to see what she's been up to through the Mayor's column, and on the odd occasion where we've certainly more recently been able to see her out and about and in the press. But I do know that she has risen to the challenge enormously that has been laid in front of her, that she has enjoyed the year, and that the charities which she chose, while not necessarily benefiting as well as could be normally be expected, will no doubt gain from the recognition and the notice which they received. I think it's also worth paying tribute to husband Dave, because nobody manages the mayorship without that support. And again, as with this year, not only Dave, but also all the civic staff who've been able to support Jo, and indeed the rest of us through the year. I hope that she has felt that the weight of office has been light, that she has had every opportunity to enjoy what she can, and to represent the people of Worcester effectively, and to serve them as the first citizen. And I hope that now she will look forward to continuing her role as a local councillor, representing Warndon and doing her bit for that local community. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you very much. I will now invite Councillor Mark Bayliss to also reply.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And may I also offer my congratulations to your election as Mayor of the city. It's long overdue, and I'm sure you will serve our city with distinction. And I wish you and Lucy great success in that role. We all heard and we all know the trials and tribulations that Lucy has dealt with over recent months, and it is fabulous that you have a mayoral year to look forward to together. Can I also offer my thanks to Councillor Jo Hodges. While I've been on this authority a little while, I never knew Jo in her first incarnation as city mayor, and over recent years have had relatively little direct contact with Jo, apart as we often served on opposing committees. We only occasionally locked horns here in the council chamber. So it was with some trepidation that I welcomed Jo into the role of mayor. But she has met that challenge very well indeed. She has chaired our meetings in an exceptionally difficult year with fortitude. Jo knows the Constitution. I always respect anybody who knows the Constitution. And she showed no favouritism to any party in her role as mayor, which is also a very good characteristic of any mayor. I'm sorry she didn't get to do more in her year, but she seemed very relaxed and took it in her stride and said that as she'd been mayor before, that it was she wished she could do more, but it wasn't a huge disappointment because she had the memories from her first term as mayor. I was very pleased that she did get to have a mayoral function last night on the very first day and on her very last day, full day in the role. She did get to have a mayoral dinner last night. While it was not of the size of past mayor's dinners, it was an excellent evening. I was delighted to be invited to go and enjoy it with her and her family. I was particularly moved by the speeches that her two daughters made last night, which shows the high regard she is held in, obviously, by all members of her family. So I wish Jo continuing success and thank her for her service to the council this last year.
Thank you. If there's not any more members who wish to speak, we'll move on to the presentation of the past mayor's badge. So I will invite Councillor Jo Hodges to come forward to the PA table and collect her past mayor's badge.
Predictable. But resulting from that, it has also become more precious. We all know someone who's been ill or died from COVID-19, and the enduring illness, long COVID, is still affecting many people. Here in the UK, we are well on the way with the vaccine, but in many parts of the world, it's a different situation. I have been fortunate in that I've been mayor before, so it's only fair that it was my year that was disrupted, and so I wish Stephen a much smoother ride than I've had. Now, my different thank yous. What can I say about Jill, my PA, the mayor's PA? one can't say enough about all that she's done. Making sure I knew what was going on, where I had to be, when I had to be there, what I had to do when I got there. Her good humour and calm attitude to everything that comes along is a skill that I wish I had too. I'm so grateful for her patience and kindness and would like to thank her for all the friendship she's shown me this year. I'm also grateful to all the Guildhall staff, in particular Rob, Gareth, Amy and Stuart, who look after the running of the Guildhall on a day-to-day basis. They've been cheerful and helpful, and nothing has been too much trouble for them. They've gone out of their way to help me whenever I needed it. For her steady presence during my year, knowing that she was there for me should I have needed her, and knowing that I could confide in her if I was troubled. I give my thanks to her. I'd like to thank Claire. She's been a huge help preparing for council meetings and also someone I regard as a friend. Dave has known Claire since she started at the council, and that was quite a while. But this year we've worked together to make sure things always went right. And so I'm very grateful for your calm and assertive way of dealing with meetings. And that's given me confidence in all that I've done. And I'd like to give you some flowers, Claire. Yeah, you pick them off all together. Thank you very much. I'd like to thank Frank, still there. I think he's gone into the Randall room, or he may have gone back downstairs. He's come into the Guildhall on Heritage Day at a time when we didn't have vaccinations, and so it was a little bit of an uncertain time. And he stood with me in the parlour for Heritage Day and welcomed visitors in. And I'd also like to thank him for coming into this, my last meeting that I started. And only for a short time, but he let me in and he wanted to do that. So thank you very much, Frank. You'll find Frank on the rock. Margaret and Julian, I'd like to thank for their support in the background. Every good machine is only as successful as its inner workings. And Julian and Margaret and Claire are the inner workings of the Democratic Service Department. So thank you for all your help and keeping the machinery there rolling. And there's Julian. Come on. From your place at the back. And there's one more. Sean, I'd like to say a thank you to you for making sure that I didn't do anything wrong during my year. You were always there with advice about what I was allowed and what I was not allowed to do. And your expert guidance and help has seen me through this year without causing anyone to make any complaints about that I've done something wrong. I've behaved in a correct way every time. And so thank you for keeping me out of trouble and doing it in a humorous and friendly way. Thank you. Chats. We have a catch up every other month, and I found it very interesting and effectively thankful. When I was thinking about what to do, it did come to mind that we have a little arrangement where we have a little shoot before each council meeting on how long it's going to last. And I've won a lot of those sweepstakes, and David hasn't won any. So when I actually worked out how much you might owe for all those sweet days, I'm afraid that just cancelled the present out. But seriously, thank you very much for all your help. And just so everybody understands, that was actually a joke. So now just remains for me to present my consort with his cast consort badge. So this is the moment when you come out, Dave. Here he is.
Okay. The next item of business is to announce the appointment of the Deputy Mayor for the municipal year 2021 to 2022. Can I please have some nominations? Yes, Councillor Collins.
Thank you, Mayor, and congratulations on your election to office. I've had the pleasure of serving and representing Rainbow Hill Ward alongside Councillor Adrian Gregson since I joined this council 3 years ago. My time on this council is, therefore, hardly noticeable against Adrian's distinguished career here, him having served since 1992 and now beginning his 30th year in office. Adrian has served as leader and deputy leader of this council, and we've all enjoyed the benefit of his dedication and commitment, as well as his sharp and lightly dry pragmatism. Adrian is a dedicated councillor, and I have seen firsthand his commitment to our local ward, alongside that to the city overall. He has undoubtedly made a very significant and valuable contribution to the shape of our city, both now and as it develops through our emerging city plan. Adrian is uniquely well qualified to shape our city's civic story. As Worcestershire's county and diocesan archivist, Adrian spends and has spent over 30 years of his professional life steeped in the city and county's history. It seems fitting, therefore, that Councillor Gregson now takes on a role that fixes him as part of that thread of history that is our cities. And I'm sure members from all sides will join me in commending him for this civic office. It's my pleasure, therefore, to hereby nominate Councillor Adrian Gregson for the office of Deputy Mayor.
Thank you for that nomination. Do we have a seconder? Yes, Councillor Denham.
Thank you, Mayor, and congratulations on being at the top table. I think there are many who thought this day would never come, of Adrian being interested in, of Adrian wishing to be Deputy Mayor. I think there might be some who think this is a question of the poacher turned gamekeeper. But actually, Adrian is probably one of the best qualified people in the room to take on Deputy Mayor and leading towards mayorship. He doesn't need to mug up on the Worcester civic history like previous mayors who've had to, learn a script and find out all about it. Adrian knows about the city charter. He knows about the Guildhall. He knows about the First World War battles and the memorials around the city. That is his day job. Adrian's not generally an emotional person, and he might not say so, but there's absolutely no doubt that he loves his adopted home. He loves Worcester, he loves this city, and he cares deeply about Worcester, about its past, and about its future. He will make an excellent deputy mayor, and I commend him to colleagues.
Thank you very much. Do we have any further nominations? If we don't, can we please move that to the vote?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Could you raise your hand, please, for all those in favour? Motion is carried.
Thank you very much. We now move on to Mayor's communications. The first thing I'd like to do is to welcome the newly elected members. We have no less than 5 newly elected members here. So I was,
Mr. Mayor,
hold on.
a point of order, sir. It's traditional for the deputy mayor to make the declaration and sign and receive the badge of office at this point.
Okay, it's not on my script by the looks of it. Oh yes, good point.
I, Adrian Gregson, I'm elected to the office of Deputy Mayor. Declare that I take office upon myself and will duly and faithfully fulfil the duties of it according to the best of my ability. Thank you for that. It just shows you if you follow the script too closely, there's something not quite there. But thank you very much for putting me right. The next item is the Mayor's communication. And first of all, I'd like to welcome the newly elected members. We had quite a big turnaround in councillors the other day. So I'd like to welcome, first of all, Councillor Jim Carver, who's been elected for the Nunnery Ward. I know he was an MEP here till 2019. I know one of the things he said when he was standing for election is he is an NHS volunteer responder. I'd also like to thank Owen Cleary, who was elected in the Warndon Ward. Owen works as the mortgage and insurance specialist. We look forward to seeing you on the council. I also look forward to Karen Lawrence, who's been elected to the Green Party in Arboretum. She's an architect by profession. I understand she's worked for Worcester County Council and she's an active travel officer. I'd also like to welcome as well Karen Lewin. Karen Lewin, who is elected for beg your pardon, I got the wrong Karens. Karen Lewin for Arboretum and also Karen Lawrence for Claims. Has been a youth leader for over 10 years and is an engineer by profession. So welcome to the council. And finally, last but not least, Councillor Robin Norfolk, who I know very well in Warndon Villages because he is the chairman of Warndon Parish Council, which both myself and Councillor Lucy Hodgson also serve on as well. So welcome to you all. And also we need to pay tribute to those past councillors. Now at the previous meeting, the council gave their tribute to those councillors who were retiring, but unfortunately not all of them came back because every new councillor that gets elected, somebody has to miss out. So I'm going to ask Councillor Adrian Gregson to pay tribute to those councillors who aren't with us tonight. Thank you, Mayor. It's obvious that you come to me first from the Labour Party because it's 3 members from my party who were unfortunate not to get re-elected earlier in the month. And in those 3, of course, we always never sure what's going to happen at the last council meeting. So it is doubly gratifying to be able to say some kind words about those who were unfortunate in the election. And I would pay tribute firstly to Kerry Stalker from Warndon, who was on the council for 3 years in the end, but had also been elected a county councillor for that area. And so she was very much steeped in Warndon and represented that local community very well, and was very well liked in the area, and has committed straight away to life on the city council. But and maybe we will see her again at some point. I'd also like to say a few words about Joy Squires, who many people will recall had 2 stints at standing as the parliamentary candidate over the years, and has been a stalwart on the city council for many years. Joy actually did 2 periods of office on the city council. When I joined, she had already been elected, and then had a short break and returned in 2008 and has been on the council since then. And Joy is well known most recently for her engagement and application to the environmental services. So the work that we see in terms of refuse, in terms of bins, in terms of the growth of the riverside are absolutely her bread and butter in recent years. But she commanded a lot of respect and admiration for her honesty, her directness, her loyalty in the Arboretum, but also across the council. She was very well admired and respected. And her time on the council, when she first started, of course, we were involved with the racing, and that was particularly close to her heart at the time. And she's followed that up by her application to Worcester City Football Club. And I think now she's going to find some time to go and watch the cricket if any of us ever get down to New Road. Another councillor who also had a stab at becoming a parliamentary candidate was Roger Berry. And Joy racked up 17 years on this council. And it's been mentioned, I've had a few myself, but not many of us stand in the same light as ex-councillor Roger Edward Berry, who started in 1971, full 50 years ago, and had 3 separate periods on this council. Has been a past leader of the council, was particularly noted for his work on housing, but spread out into the widest realm of community services when we moved our housing corporation out. Well respected, very well liked, broadly socialist, cooperative, environmentally Labour. And I think that we will miss Roger's challenge on all sides of the chamber. And remember that if you do want to get in touch with him, he is always around, except don't email after 11 o'clock and don't clash with the Man United games. We will miss them from the party, but we will miss them, I think, from the council too. And I must thank you for the opportunity to mark their service.
Thank you very much. It was very important that their long service was recognised. Yes, Councillor Bayliss.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The trouble with going after Councillor Gregson on a tribute like that is he's taken most of my material. But can I add my party's thanks to the members who have lost in the election and not come back. Kerry Stalker was and is a breath of fresh air. At a political level, while we are pleased to take the seat, Kerry was a dedicated member of this council, and I wish her well in her future. And if she returns, I'm sure she will continue to serve this council well. Councillor Joyce Squires, somebody I've known a very long time too, and who has given a distinguished service to this council, as Councillor Gregson said, 17 years in 2 spells as a councillor for the same ward, but under 2 different names in that period. Joy has held most roles on the council, including deputy leader, and most recently as chair of the Environment Committee, where she has distinguished herself working with colleagues to create a consensus around the future of environmental services that we deliver, and has worked well again across the aisle with colleagues. And then, if I may, Councillor Roger Berry, I think deserves special, former Councillor Roger Berry deserves special mention. 50 years almost dedicated service to the city is extraordinary. I don't think there is any position on this council that Roger Berry didn't hold at one time. He was a committee chair, he was a deputy leader, he was the leader, he was the deputy mayor, he was the mayor. There is almost every position that this council can bestow, he held. He was, of course, he'd had his ups and his downs. He lost his seat when deputy mayor in the 1990s and came back. And I was pleased that Roger was able to be mayor. I think it would have been a sad point if Roger had left this council without having served it as mayor. He loves this city. He's not dead. Clearly, he's alive and kicking. He's written to me already to tell me that he will continue to monitor our goings on. He may well be watching us now, and he said he'll be sure to tell me where I'm going wrong. And I'm sure he's writing that letter as we speak. He has been an almost permanent fixture of this council since the 1970s, and it is a city that he truly loves, even though it's his adopted home, as he would tell us. He's actually from Malvern. And I wish Roger particularly, if he does not return, a particular thanks from this council for his service to us over that long period of time. And I hope that there will be an opportunity that we may consider of recognising that service in the future, if that is his wish. But thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much for those tributes. I'd like to now announce my mayor's chaplain for the coming year. As the parishioner of St Nicholas's Church in Warner Villages, I'm pleased that my parish priest, Reverend Diane Cooksey, has agreed, and also accompanying her as a co-chaplain is her curate, Reverend Rosie Moss, who is new to the ministry of the church, and in the coming week she will be having her second ordination as a priest. She's currently ordained as a deacon, and I'm sure she's looking forward to coming here and meeting you all. Next important item is the announcement of the mayor's charities, and I've chosen 2 charities that are close to both Lucy and I personally at heart. One is a Worcester charity called ASPI for adults who has Asperger's syndrome. I know many adults, sometimes find things difficult, and this charity does a great thing with these people, these adults of all ages, in terms of getting their confidence, and especially with lockdown, which has been a difficult time. I heard some quite bad news from them this week that the premises they're using, the lease on that is coming to an end soon, and they are looking for new premises. So hopefully one of the things, as Mayor of Worcester, I could help the profile of that charity in terms of getting suitable city centre accommodation that suits to what they do, because I went to their premises, and the thing about Asperger's, it covers a whole wide spectrum of people with different needs and that, and this facility they have different rooms for different things, whether young people, whether adults can play games, or whether just meet up and have a chat over a coffee, or whether they can sit somewhere quietly and listen to music or whatever. So it does a really, really important role. And the second one is really derives from my wife's stroke she had earlier on this year, which obviously shocked us all. And the Stroke Association, we've offered her help, and they have a regional office based in Bromsgrove, and they also have activities based in the city of Worcester as well. I know hopefully we can, help to raise awareness of strokes and that, because I know when Lucy, she had a few warning signs which we didn't adhere to, and if people are more aware of that, we can do so much more for people who have strokes. So those are my two charities. And the next thing I want to talk about is obviously the mayoral theme of the year, because this is, again, a strange year in a way, in that we're now coming out of the COVID thing. Hopefully, these variants we'll hear about are not going to be as severe as they could be because of the vaccinations many of us have and are still going to have, which will hopefully stop that from becoming the threat it has been in the past. And I think what we need to do is, there's a lot of things going on in this city with the 400th anniversary of the Charter, and I understand it's the 300th anniversary of the Guildhall. We've also got the Three Choirs Festival coming as well. We've also got the elephants coming as well. So we've got a lot of things happening, and therefore the theme of this year is quite simply coming back together to celebrate our great city. And I think, that is the theme which sort of encompasses so many different things, and I think sums up where we are now. So that's really what it's all about. Now, obviously, because of COVID and that, getting key civic things planned is still very, very difficult. I know I'm just thinking when I do my mayor's diary for the Worcester News, how I'm going to do that. And I'm thinking, well, because I have to scan myself into so many different places with the NHS app, I might just send the download of that to the Worcester News to use for my mayoral diary. But on a more serious point, though, I have got to begin the date of the 11th of July for a civic service. And I know we've got the three choirs coming, and hopefully there'll be an opening service on the 24th of July. And I have been given a date for a possible inaugural banquet as well in September. But when we have more details, we'll get those across to you. So those are my notices. So now I'll need to ask for any members who've got any interest they'd like to declare. Okay, the next thing we need to do is, can we agree that the minutes of the meeting on the 21st of March are a true and accurate record? So can we agree? Okay, thank you very much. And we now go on to the report of the returning officer. So we ask the council please to note the report of the returning officer for the results of the election held on the 6th of May 2021 of city councillors for the ward of the Worcester City Council. Agreed, that's great. And now for the important item on the agenda, the appointment of the leader of the council. So can we have nomination, please, for the leader of the council for the municipal year 2021-2022?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And firstly, may I congratulate you on your appointment to the office of Mayor. It's a great privilege, and I wish you all the best for your year to come. I would like to propose Councillor Mark Bayliss.
Thank you. And can we have a seconder, please? Yes, Simon. Councillor Simon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and congratulations from myself, and I hope from all members of the council to your election to the office. Can I second the proposition of Mark Bayliss as leader of the council?
Thank you. Are there any other nominations? In that case, can we move this to a vote?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Could I ask you to raise your hands, please, for all those in favour? For all those against? Abstaining? The motion is carried.
Thank you. Okay. Next item is to appoint the deputy leader of the council for year 2021. I understand Councillor Bayliss has comment.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and can I thank council for their support to continue as leader. I'd like to propose that the election of deputy leader be deferred until the meeting immediately at the end of this meeting.
Okay, can I have this motion to have an extraordinary council meeting seconded, please? Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I second that.
Thank you. Can we have the vote, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. All those in favour of the motion to defer the item, raise your hand, please. All those against? Any abstentions? The motion is carried.
Okay. Okay, the next thing is I need to does the meeting agree to the council agree to the political balance of committees on this committee? That's the paper you've been given. Just you want to propose that? Yes.
I'd like to propose the balance as suggested, which includes two committees which at this point have not been agreed by the council but are part of my motion for the next meeting. If we wish to defer it until after that item, I'm happy, but if members are content to agree it now, I'll move it.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I'll second that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So just to be clear, we are voting to defer the item to the extraordinary meeting directly after the council meeting. Raise your hand, please, all those in favour. Against? Any abstentions? Thank you, the motion is carried.
Okay, the next thing is the appointment of members to committees and committee. And again, there's a motion to propose that we defer this to the extraordinary council meeting that will follow this meeting. So,
I move that it be deferred, sir.
Mr. Mayor, I'll second that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Raise your hand, all those in favour of the motion to defer the item. Thank you, the motion is carried.
And the final thing on the annual council agenda is report on the councillor's allowance, which you've got here. So just simply a noting. So do we note that? Thank you. Okay, then. That now concludes the business of the annual council meeting. I will now formally close this meeting, and I'm going to invite the council to proceed directly with the agenda for the extraordinary meeting of the council. Okay, I'd like to welcome you to this extraordinary council meeting of the 18th of May 2021. Please note, Claire will indicate when all speakers have 1 minute remaining, and again when their allocated time is up. So the first thing is, are there any apologies for absence? I don't have any. So I will now ask if any members got any interest to declare. And has there been any public participation? Thank you very much. Okay, there's now a motion by the leader of the council, the amendment to the constitution and consequential members' appointments. So Mark, do you want to propose this?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I thank council for rolling with my proposals to defer the previous items. it makes sense in relation to these the following amendments that I'd like to make to the Constitution. The first, I've got four key areas. The first one is the committees of the council. Our committee system, I think, is one of our great success stories of recent years on the council, enabling more members to participate in decision making and to feel that they are making a real contribution to the policy agenda of the council. I'd like to change one of our subcommittees into a full committee of the council, and I'd like to create a whole new committee of the council. So firstly, Place and Economic Development Subcommittee is a subcommittee of the Policy and Resources Committee currently. It deals with the majority of our place shaping agenda, and this has become an increasingly important role of the council, particularly as we have been so successful in attracting government funding over recent years. The Cultural Development Fund, which was £3 million, we thought was a good success. That was followed up more recently by the £18 million from the government for the Future High Streets Fund. And we are hopeful of the Towns Fund proposal, where we are being for £28 million. And Worcester has also been identified as a priority one area for the levelling up agenda, potentially another 20 million. These are record sums in Worcester's history. And they have the potential, I believe, to be transformative of our economic and social future. It therefore seems slightly odd that the committee that looks at this is just a subcommittee with 5 members. I'm therefore proposing that it become a full committee of the council with 11 members and enjoy equal status with the existing full committees. I believe it's a clear rationale for that. And it has important work to do, which will engage more members. Second committee of the council I would like to create, this is a wholly new one, looks at the health and wellbeing agenda. As it says in my motion, the pandemic has shown us that just how important good health is, not just to the individual, but to the community and the society as a whole. And there is a growing awareness of the importance of health and wellbeing, including mental health and wellbeing, across the policy agenda. I believe that this remit currently falls within the communities committee, but the breadth of that committee's work has unfortunately unnaturally limited the amount of work that we could do in this area. I'm therefore proposing that a new committee, full committee of the council with 11 members be created in order to meet that growing need. There is also emerging structural changes in the NHS, which once again, thankfully, recognises the important role that district councils and district areas play in the health agenda. And I think it will be important for us to have a committee that is focused upon those. So my first proposal is to amend and create those committees. The second area of change I'd like to do is that currently the Constitution was written and framed in a period of no overall control. The council and the electorate have given a mandate to my party and given us a majority on the council. I therefore think it is entirely reasonable for the deputy leader of the council to come from the ruling group as well as the leader. The current constitution was, as I say, approved during a period of no overall control. And I would like to amend the constitution so that the deputy leader can be appointed from within the majority party. The third amendment that I'd like to move is that to a clause within the constitution that prohibits the deputy mayor from either being the chair or vice chair of any committee of the council. I think it entirely reasonable that the deputy mayor may not be a chairman of a committee and be brought into the political fray on that basis. But it seems unreasonable for the deputy mayor to be disbarred from being a vice chairman of a committee. And so I would like to amend the constitution to enable the vice chair, the deputy mayor of the city, to be a vice chairman of any council committee. Fourthly, I would like to agree amendments to the group leaders protocol. The protocol was adopted again during 2017 when the committee system was introduced, and it was aimed to produce political stability and to enshrine some of the new ways of working that have characterised this council over recent years. I would like to, instead of removing the protocol, I'd like to adapt the protocol as set out, which continues to enshrine some of the important facets of the cooperation that has existed between political groups over recent years. The main changes are that each committee will be chaired by the majority group, but the vice chairs of all the policy committees will come from one of the other parties. And as I've said in the previous one, that the deputy leader may come from the majority group. There are other important aspects to the protocol, which I hope are still apparent, including the rights of vice chairman to place items on the agenda of a committee and for the vice chairman to receive the same briefing as the chairman. There are important things that we have learned over recent years in terms of sharing of power and in terms of the common goals and aims that we have. And I would certainly hope that doing something that we don't have to do, or that I don't have to do, which is sharing out the policy leads within those committees between the groups, it shows a mark of our maturity and recognition of the contribution that other members can play. I recognise that politics may become more apparent in this scenario than it has been in recent years, particularly at committees where it's featured very little. But I certainly hope that these amendments reflect an ongoing wish to work across the aisle where we can to create a council where we maximise and use all the talents. Therefore, I propose the amendments are as stated in my motion 1 to 6, and I propose that they take immediate effect and that we then move back to the item. If agreed, we move back to the items that were deferred from the previous agenda.
Thank you for that. First of all, the way we're going to, first of all, we need a seconder for this particular proposition. So, yes, Councillor Mitchell.
Yeah, yes, Mr. Mayor, I second the proposal and I defer my right to speak.
Okay, now in terms of handling this, each of the 5 recommendations.
Sorry, point of order.
Hold on.
Sorry, point of order. Councillor Mitchell, it occurs to me that you might prefer somebody else second this, bearing in mind you have an interest in one of the items. I'm just thinking from your point of view, transparency. Sorry to be a pedant, but I think that might be the best approach.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor. More than happy to second it.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, I'm going to explain now how to continue now. These 5 recommendations that the leader of the council has proposed need to be voted on separately, right? What I'm going to do, I'm going to read each one in turn, right, and then we can then have any someone wants to raise speech on this can do so. And obviously, if speakers want to speak on more than one of these amendments, they can actually do so. So the first one is regarding the articles part of the Constitution.
Point of order, Mr. Mayor. Sorry, there are 6, not 5.
Mission, Mr. Mayor.
Number
6 leads on to the deferred items as such, so we will then debate those separately after we've agreed the necessary changes in order for us to do so.
Okay. Okay, so each one has to be voted on it separately. So the first one regards the article part of the Constitution be amended in the terms set out in Appendix 1 so that the requirement for the deputy leader to come from another party, the leader, is removed. Anybody want to speak on that particular aspect of the Constitutional Amendment? If nobody does, can I move this to the vote, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So all those in favour of the first point, please, of the motion? Against? Abstentions? The motion is carried.
Thank you for that. Okay, we'll now move on to the second proposition, which is the responsibility for functions part 3 of the Constitution be amended in the terms set out in Appendix 2 to create the Place and Economic Development Committee and the Health and Wellbeing Committee. And again, can we ask if any members want to make any comment on this? If not, we'll go to the vote.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. All those in favour of point 2 of the motion, please raise your hand. Thank you. Against? Any abstentions? Thank you. The motion is carried.
Thank you. The third proposition, the Council Procedure Rules, Part 4 of the Constitution be amended in the terms set out in Appendix 3 to enable the Deputy Mayor to be a Vice Chair of a Council Committee. So again, anyone's got any comment first before we go to the vote? If we haven't, we'll go to the vote.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. All those voting in favour, please raise your hand. Thank you. Against? Any abstentions? Thank you. The motion is carried.
Thank you. Okay, the fourth one now regarding the Group Leaders Protocol. Part 15 of the Constitution is amended to reflect the new political control of the Council, and revised version set out in Appendix 4 is now adopted. So again, any comments on that? If they are not, can we move this to the vote?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. All those voting in favour, please raise your hand. Thank you. Against? Any abstentions? Against? Sorry. Thank you. Any abstentions? Thank you. The motion is carried.
Mr. Mayor, before you proceed to the item 5, there was one matter that I hadn't covered that I feel I should have covered in my introduction, and with your indulgence and agreement, I would just make it clear that in terms of the consequential amendments to the Constitution would include the member scheme of allowances will obviously need to change to reflect the new committees. And I should have made that clear. I think it's implicit, but I'll make that clear at this point. So we are agreeing to the members' allowances, the consequential members' allowances changes.
Thank you very much for that clarification. Okay. Section 5, the monitoring officer is instructed to make any constitutional amendment to the Constitution to give effect to the decisions. So, any comments? Yes, Councillor Denham.
I mean, just to clarify whether anybody needs to declare an interest, because depending how who gets appointed to these, individuals might have an interest in the changes in allowances. Do we need some sort of clarification on that point?
Thank you, Councillor Denham, and it is a good point. My advice would be that because the council has already voted and determined this scheme of allowances, that will apply to the new committees, noting the position that obviously members appointed to committees then get the benefit of those. I don't see any difficulty in members participating in the voting process because the existing approved scheme allowance is what will be applied. So I think we've already done that decision making at a previous meeting.
Thank you. Can we put proposition 5 to the vote, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. All those voting in favour, please raise your hand. Any voting against? Abstentions? Thank you. The motion is carried.
Thank you. Now we've completed those constitutional amendments, we can now go to the third item from the annual council, which is the appointment of the deputy leader of the council. So can I have a nomination, please?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to nominate Councillor Chris Mitchell to the role of deputy leader of the council.
Thank you. And can I have a seconder, please? Yes, Councillor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and many congratulations on your election. I'll be happy to second the nomination of Councillor Chris Mitchell to the role of Deputy Leader.
Thank you very much. And are there any other nominations? that case, then can we move to the vote, please? Councillor Bailey, do you wish to speak on this? Or I'll just go to the vote. Okay, we'll just go to the vote then.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. All those voting in favour of the motion, please raise your hand. Voting against? Any abstentions? Thank you. The motion is carried.
Okay, the next thing is the deferred item of the annual council, and obviously this is to reflect the new committee structure we've voted in, to reflect the political balance on the committee and subcommittees. So is Councillor Bayliss proposing it?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to propose the political balance of committees and subcommittees for 21-22 as set out in Appendix 1 and reserve my right to speak on it should it be necessary.
Thank you. And can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Mitchell.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I second that motion.
Thank you very much. Anybody else want to speak on this? If they're not, can we move this to the vote, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. All those voting in favour, please raise your hand. All those voting against? Any abstentions? The motion is carried.
Okay, item 7 on this agenda, which is the deferred item from annual council, the appointment of members to the committees and subcommittees and appointment of chairs and vice chairs. So I'm going to invite our 4 group leaders to make their announcements. So first of all, Councillor Bayliss.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Shall we start with policy and resources, if that's okay? Do you want to do this committee at a time? Yeah, okay. Policy and resources. Myself, Councillor Mitchell, Councillor Steve Mackay, Councillor James Stanley, Councillor Andy Stafford, Councillor Louise Griffiths, and Councillor Lucy Hodgson, with the chair being myself, sir.
We'll do it committee by committee. That's the easiest way to do it. So Councillor Gregson, do you want to announce your appointment to that committee?
Thanks, Mayor. Councillors Riaz, Hodges, Denham, Gregson, the latter being vice chair.
And Councillor Stephen.
Councillor Stephen, and I will also be vice chair.
Thank you. And finally, Councillor Alcott.
Councillor Alcott.
Thank you. The next one is the Communities Committee. So Councillor Bayliss, can I have your nominations, please?
Thank you. Councillor James Stanley, Councillor Stephen Hodgson, Councillor Mike Johnson, Councillor Nida Hassan, Councillor Bill Amos, Councillor Jim Carver, and Councillor James Stanley as chairman.
Thank you. And Councillor Gregson.
Councillors Collins, Lamb, Denham, and Riaz, the latter being vice chair.
Councillor Stephen, for your nomination.
Councillor Marjorie Bishop.
Okay, Councillor Bayliss, can I have your nomination for the Environment Committee, please?
For Environment Committee, Councillor Andy Stafford, Councillor Andy Roberts, Councillor Mohammed Altaf, Councillor Bill Amos, Councillor Owen Cleary, and Councillor Louise Griffiths, and Councillor Stafford as chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Gregson.
Councillors Cronin, Norfolk, Udall and Collins, the latter being vice chair.
And Councillor Stephen.
Councillor Neil Lawrenson.
Thank you. And the next committee is the Health and Wellbeing. So first of all, Councillor Bayliss.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Louise Griffiths, Councillor Steve Mackay, Councillor Mike Johnson, Lucy Hodgson, Aladita and Stephen Hodgson, and with Councillor Louise Griffiths as chairman.
Thank you. And Councillor Gregson.
Councillors Norfolk, Riaz, Udall, Denham being vice chair.
And finally, Councillor Alcott.
Councillor Karen Lawrence.
Thank you. Next one is the Place and Economic Development Committee. Councillor Bayliss.
Councillor Lucy Hodgson, Councillor Jim Cover, Councillor Owen Cleary, Councillor James Stanley, Councillor Alan Amos, Councillor Simon Gerrity, with Councillor Lucy Hodgson as chair.
Thank you. And Councillor Gregson.
Councillor Agar, Norfolk, Gregson, Hodges, with the latter being vice chair.
Thank you. And Councillor Stephen.
Councillor Karen Lewing.
Thank you. The next one is an income generation subcommittee. So, Councillor Bayliss, have your.
Mr. Mayor, Councillor Steve Mackay, Chris Mitchell, Andy Stafford, Louise Griffiths, with Councillor Steve Mackay as chair.
Can I have Councillor Gregson's nomination?
You can, Mayor, but can you just check those numbers again, please?
Councillor Bayliss, I think I've counted 4 there.
Sorry, Councillor, I'm hearing that I may have included one name too many in my list. So Councillor Steve Mackay, Chris Mitchell and Andy Stafford. Everybody's happy.
Thanks. Councillor Riaz from our side.
And Councillor Stephen.
Myself, Councillor Louis Stephen.
Thank you. And I'll find one of the Personnel and General Purposes Subcommittee. So Councillor Bayliss.
4, I think. Councillor Chris Mitchell, Lucy Hodgson, Mark Bayliss, Councillor James Stanley, with Councillor Chris Mitchell as chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Gregson.
Councillor Gregson and Denham.
Thank you. And Councillor Stephen.
Myself, Councillor Louis Stephen.
Thank you. We're now going to move on to the regulatory committees. So the first one is the Planning Committee, and Mark Bayliss, you have 6 members.
That's reassuring, Mr. Mayor. I have 6 names, so that's the first test. Councillor Mike Johnson, Councillor Alan Amos, Councillor Bill Amos, Councillor Andy Roberts, Councillor Owen Cleary, and Councillor Aladita, with Councillor Johnson as chair.
Thank you. Can I have a 3 Labour nomination from Councillor Gregson?
Councillor Barnes, Hodges and Agar, with the latter being the vice chair.
Thank you. And Councillor Stephen, can I have one nomination, please?
Councillor Marjorie Bishop.
Oh, could you repeat that again, please? Hold on, wait till this goes past.
Yes, Councillor Marjorie Bishop.
Councillor Bissett.
Thank you. And the final nomination for this one is Councillor Alcott.
Myself, Councillor Alcott.
Thank you very much. And the next one is the Licensing and Environmental Health Committee. So Councillor Bayliss can have 6 nominations, please.
Yes, Councillor Alla Ditter, Councillor James Stanley, Councillor Jim Carver, Councillor Nida Hassan, Councillor Andy Stafford, and Councillor Chris Mitchell, with Councillor Ditter as chair and Councillor Hassan as vice chair.
Thank you. Councillor Gregson, can I have 3 nominations, please?
Councillor Cronin, Barnes, Udall.
And Councillor Stephen, can I have your nomination, please?
Councillor Karen Lewing.
And Councillor Alcott, can I have your nomination, please?
Myself, Councillor Mal Alcott.
Thank you. Next one is Audit and Governance. So Mark, Councillor Bayliss can have 4 nominations, please.
Councillor Alan Amos, Councillor Nida Hassan, Councillor Mark Bayliss, and Councillor Mike Johnson, with Councillor Alan Amos as chair.
Thank you very much. Councillor Gregson, can I have 2 nominations, please?
Councillors Agar and Barnes, the latter being vice chair.
Thank you very much. And Councillor Stephen, can I have a nomination, please?
Councillor Neil Lawrenson.
Thank you. Next committee is the Standards Committee. So Councillor Bayliss can I have 4 nominations, please.
Thank you. Councillor Andy Roberts, Councillor Chris Mitchell, Councillor Alan Amos, and Councillor Steve Mackay, with Andy Roberts as chair.
Thank you. Councillor Gregson, can I have your nomination, please?
Councillor Lamb as BC.
Thank you. And Councillor Stephen, can I have your nomination, please?
Myself, Councillor Louis Stephen.
And Councillor Alcott, can I have your nomination, please?
Councillor Karen Lawrence.
Thank you. Okay, next one, a nomination to other bodies. So the first one we've got is the Joint Museums Committee with a membership of 2. So
Nominations to the other bodies now. Joint Museums Committee, Worcestershire Reg Services Board, Joint Consultative and Safety Committee. Joint Museums Committee, membership of 2.
Could I have a 2-minute recess, Mr. Mayor? And I'll, it's not on my list, so rather than if you give me a moment.
okay, we'll give you a couple of minutes.
Mr. Mayor, while we're recessing, can you tell us how many numbers each?
Apologies, members. So Joint Museums Committee is a membership of 2. Worcestershire Reg Services is a membership of 2. Joint Consultative and Safety Committee is a membership of 4.
number of appointments by political groupings on this committee. So we've now got those numbers now correct now. So the first thing is
So we just ask Councillor Bayes, do we have a
Councillor Bayes,
nomination?
can I have your nomination for the Joint Museums Committee, please?
Mr. Mayor, yes, I do have a nomination for Joint Museums. Councillor Lucy Hodgson as our nominee.
Councillor Agar.
Can I have the Councillor Gregson's nomination, please?
Agar.
Thank you. Okay, Councillor Bayliss, can I have your nomination, please?
Worcestershire Regulatory Services, our nomination is Councillor Jim Carver.
Thank you. And Councillor Gregson, your nomination.
Councillor Udall.
Thank you very much. And finally, the Joint Consultative and Safety Committee, which has a membership of 4. So Councillor Bayliss, can I have your 2 nominations, please?
Myself and Councillor Lucy Hodgson.
Thank you very much. And for Labour, can I have your nomination, please, Councillor Gregson?
Gregson and Denham.
And that's the nomination completed for that.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. And there's no more committee nominations for this evening.
Chair, but before we close the item, I just want to check we've got.
Hold on. Okay then, Council, because that was slightly complicated, we've now got all our names for the committee now filled. So now what I now need is a proposer for all these appointments on block, please. So can I have a proposer, please?
I'd like to propose them, Mr. Mayor.
And can I have a seconder?
I'll second, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much. Can we move to the vote, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. All those in favour of the appointments, please raise your hand. Thank you. The motion is carried.
Thank you very much. That now concludes the formal business of this extraordinary meeting. It's been a bit of a challenging night, the first time we all met in person, and with the technology of that as well, and getting used to the lists. But I think we've got there now. So thank you very much.